We love you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Hey, welcome everyone. Oh, Fraser's back. All right. So, A Course in Miracles, we are back. It's been a week. I feel like it's been a long time. Thank you everyone for joining me here this morning. This is a practice that I really been I've been devoted to for the last 6-7 years and been teaching it for 4. So this is A Course in Miracle, this book right here, everyone. It's a self-study book, and the goal of it really is to find peace in everything that we do in our lives. And so I'll kind of just start with the introduction, where this sums up what the course really is, and then we'll go into chapter 2, section 2 is where we're at. It doesn't matter if you have not been following along. Every single section, every paragraph, every sentence of the course really speaks into the same thing in a different way. So everything's really standalone. All right. So, okay, A Course in Miracles. It starts by saying that this is a course in miracles. It is a required course. Only the time you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at any given time. The course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposites. This course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way: nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. So there's a line in here that says it does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. The course is all about and teaching you how to return to your natural inheritance, which is love, to oneness. Okay, and that's what the course calls atonement. The atonement, to atone is to undo. The atonement is to undo all the errors and all the mistakes in which we see the world and in which we see ourselves. Okay, so we're going to just start here in chapter 2, section 2, where we left off, the atonement as defense. Let me just move this thing over, get the chat box up. All right, so if you're watching live anywhere, feel free to you can ask questions in the comments, things like that. And if you're live with us on Zoom, at any point you can raise your hand, ask questions for clarity, clarity questions. And the invitation for you as you're listening to this is not a I agree, I disagree place. The trying to figure out and trying to understand the words it's actually going to get in the way. All right, but let's see if we can hear the words beyond the words behind the words, the spirit of which these words have been written, and the spirit in which it is being recited, I guess, being read. So in that space, we ask that the Holy Spirit come and join us in our listening, in our speaking, in our sharing, and in our thoughts, so that we may truly be guided by a higher self, by spirit. Okay, so I'll read. As I read, allow yourself just to be open enough to hear whatever it is that's coming to you. Okay, because all of us that are on this call here, and if you're listening to any part of it, you will have a different listening. We have our filters, and whatever comes to you, just know that it is perfect, that is divinely guided. You can do anything I ask. I have asked you to perform miracles and have made it clear that miracles are natural, corrective, healing, and universal. There is nothing they cannot do. There is nothing they cannot do, but they cannot be performed in the spirit of fear or doubt. When you're afraid of anything, you are acknowledging its power to hurt you. Remember that where your heart is, there is your treasure also. You believe in what you value. If you are afraid, you are valuing wrongly. Your understanding will then inevitably value wrongly, and by endowing all thoughts with equal power, will inevitably destroy peace. That is why the Bible speaks of the peace of God, which passeth understanding. This peace is totally incapable of being shaken by errors of any kind. It denies the ability of anything not of God to affect you. This is the proper use of denial. It is not used to hide anything, but to correct error. It brings all error into light, and since error and darkness are the same, it corrects error automatically. This is why the Course talks a lot about, when we it's just a simple choice, right? To go through all the darkness, trauma, and all the things that we have carried with us. It isn't about going through the darkness and dealing with the darkness and try to overcome the darkness. It is simply a choice to choose love and to choose light instead. And as soon as you do so, the darkness and the stories and all the things that you've carried as trauma or limitations to yourself, it automatically disappears. Right? We've all had those moments in which we just enjoyed this moment so much and are so grateful that gratitude and love carries over into and actually overcomes all the things that we have fear and doubt about. Do I need to give you the host back to live stream or record? I don't know. I think I'm just gonna. I've already taken it back. Don't worry about it, Eric. Thanks. I think it's already live streaming and it's going. Okay. Where were we? True denial is a powerful protective device. You can and should deny any belief that error can hurt you. This kind of denial is not a concealment, but a correction. Your right mind depends on it. Denial of error is a strong defense of truth, but denial of truth results in miscreation, the projections of the ego. In the service of the right mind, the denial of error frees the mind and reestablishes freedom of the will. When the will is totally free, it cannot miscreate because it recognizes only truth. You can defend truth as well as error. The means are easier to understand after the value of the goal is firmly established. It is a question of what is it for. Everyone defends his treasure and will do so automatically. The real questions are, what do you treasure and how much do you treasure it? Once you have learned to consider these questions and bring them into all your actions, you have little difficulty in clarifying the means. The means are available whenever you ask. You can, however, save time if you do not protract this step unduly. The correct focus will shorten it immediately. So this is about asking the right questions. Right? Here is a law. A law is that everyone defends his treasure and will do so automatically. So the things that you believe in, treasure meaning ideas, right? We have our own truths. We have our own past experiences in which we might limit us, and then we behave, and our result is that we behave in a certain way, and we blame these other things that created limitations for us. I was abandoned. I was bullied. I was so now I'm this way. Right? We give justification of how we behave now to something in the past. Right? And those things really don't have any connections. However, you could defend that error, and you will defend it, that error in connection, and you will defend it because you treasure it. And you will defend what you treasure, and you will do so automatically. Now the question is, the questions are, what do you treasure and how much do you treasure it? All right, so think about something in the past. Maybe it's, right now you're in a certain scenario in which you keep doing the same thing over and over in your relationships. And rather than saying, right now, I can do something to interrupt that pattern, you blame the pattern on something in the past, whether it be on your parents, on a previous breakup, or whatever, right? We can relate this to anything. I don't trust in investing with somebody. I don't trust somebody in partnership in business because I've been burned in the past. And what the Course is saying, it's giving me thumbs up. Look at this. Oh, wow. Look at that. 2 thumbs up is fireworks. Oh, sorry. Okay. So what we're treasuring is we're treasuring this story that we've held on to in the past. Okay. Why am I frozen? Now I've disappeared. What we're treasuring is the things that we've held on to in the past. Hold on one sec. But if we can ask ourselves, why and how much do we treasure it? Do we treasure it more than the results that we want to create now? All right, one sec. Wow, a lot of technical difficulties this morning. Hello. Camera, where are you at? First it was the mic and the speaker, now it's the camera. One sec. Hold on. Now my camera is not working. It just froze and then it disappeared.
We're going to the Apple store today. No more of this shit.
Okay, well, you don't need to see me. We can still continue. The story, but camera. The atonement is the only defense that cannot be used by you. Your stories and all the other things are made by you, however. So, for example, I'm just going to share, and I've shared this before, but Marianne Williamson, basically, she said she's had this whole image of, what'd you do? Don't mess with that one.
I did.
She's had this whole idea of her parents fighting her whole life, and she blames her inability to be in solid relationships and working relationships because of how she witnessed her parents. And so she held on to that. So she treasured that, right? She treasured that. And this is something that she made up. She perceived it this way, but we can say, no, that is the truth. But it isn't the truth. It is a perception. It is the way that we viewed something. It is the way that we perceived a relationship. And then when I think her dad passed or something like that, she found love notes. She found, where her dad was courting her mom, and it completely changed her whole opinion and her whole perception of her dad. Right. Unplug it, just unplug it and plug it back in on the camera. So you see how if the truth and knowledge is defined in the Course as something that is unchangeable and unalterable. Okay, it never changes. However, if it changes, it is a perception. Okay, so when we think about the way that we are in relationship with somebody, I think about this person this way. This person is always mean. This person's always, whatever it is that we attach to it. See, that's not the truth because it can change. Somebody can do something and it will change your perception of them. So then it isn't the truth. Right? Truth, the Course says, is you are love. You are an extension of God. You are an innocent child of God. And that's never changing. Okay, camera's back on. Yay.
It's just unplugging and plugging it back in.
Yes, that is always the answer. The answer is just to unplug it and plug it back in. I think that's the answer to all the things that we're talking about here as well. You unplug and you plug back in, and then it resets, and then the atonement happens. We undo all the things that we've made up. Okay, so where was I? All right. So I'm just trying to define and make clear for everyone of what does it mean by it's a device made by you versus a device made by God. Okay, love is really the only thing that is made by God. And there are certain universal laws about love. And one of them being that everything is an ideal, including yourself, including all of the stories and perceptions that you have, including love, including fear. These are all, there's laws in which it operates from. The more you think about something, the more you talk about something, the more you give it energy, it grows. Okay, so if you think about, if you think more about love, then your mind starts to see the world more loving. If you think about fear and you're reinforcing the idea that this world is dangerous, you can't trust people, then more of that will just show up for you, right? The way it operates is that our physical world, this 3D world operates from whatever we choose to see in our mind, we will see in this world. Okay, now in the 5D world, in the world of spirit, all things are just the same. All things are neutral. Okay, so the atonement is the only defense that cannot be used destructively because it is not a device you made. Anything else that you defend against love can be used destructively because you made it. Now, this is something that we can say about transformational personal development work, right? Some of the things that we learn in there, it could be perceived in a way in which we use it as a weapon against somebody else. Right? This is, my wife and I go through this all the time. We get coaching. We've been coaching with our coaches for like 6 years. And once in a while, when we're listening to it, we're listening from a place of, oh, see, let me give this information to her so that she can use it and she can behave in a way that is according to my belief. Right? And then that ends up happening. A lot of times we use it as a projection onto somebody else rather than we use it as a personal development. All the work, including A Course in Miracles and any personal development work, is for you. It's personal. It's for you. It's not for you to use it on somebody else. But we tend to do that. Right? We tend to use it like, let me think. Okay, there's a thing that we learn in these trainings of I get to versus I have to. Right? It works. If you think about it, like I get to do something versus I have to, the experience of it is different when I speak to that, when I think about it like that. But then when we hear somebody else say have to, we're like, no, get to. Right? We want to correct somebody else using things that we learn. So all of this work is designed for you. It's for you to find peace, not for you to correct others so that they can behave in a way that will give you peace. If we ever look for anything outside of ourselves, it will always fail. And we do that. We find our peace in, if this thing outside works, then I'll be more at peace and I'll be more happy. If I can have more money, by when? we can go all day, all the transformational things that we use, right? And we use it to correct other people and we think we're doing them a favor, but really what we're doing is we're projecting something. All right. Where am I? The principle was love and the atonement was an act of love. I love that part. So it's very clear. The principle of the atonement. Okay, this was in effect long before the atonement even began. The atonement is So first comes the separation, right? Last week we talked about the origins of separation, where we thought, the tiny mind idea comes, which is, what if I could be something other than this? And it actually mentions that all of our scarcity and all of our problems comes from that I can somehow be in a state rather than this one. Something could be better. The grass is greener on the other side. That's the origin of separating our mind. It takes us out of the present into a past or into a future or into a what if. And we're no longer here. And so the separation comes, the identity, our identity starts to separate as well, starts to fragment. And so the atonement is the coming back of all of that, is the returning to oneness. That is the atonement. Okay, to atone is to correct what? Is to correct the separation. The idea that separation exists. So the atonement principle, okay, the atonement principle is that the principle is love. The atonement was an act of love. So the returning back to your wholeness, to your mind as one, to all of our oneness to one, that is the act itself. Okay, and the principle is love, or God. Acts were not necessary before the separation because belief in space and time did not exist. It was only after the separation that the atonement and the conditions necessary to fulfill, to its fulfillment, to the fulfillment of atonement were planned. Then the defense so splendid was needed that it could not be misused, although it could be reused. Refusal could not, however, turn into a weapon of attack, which is the inherent characteristic of other defenses. The atonement thus becomes the only defense that is not a two-edged sword. It can only heal. So the correction of our own mind is the only defense that is not a two-edged sword. Every single other thing that we find and we, in this 3D world, we can use, one, as a defense, and two, use it as a sword to attack. Wow, so strange. A string on my guitar literally just snapped out of nowhere. Okay. It says, I agree. The atonement was built into the space-time belief to set a limit on the need for the belief itself and ultimately to make learning complete. The atonement is the final lesson. See, this is the atonement, oneness, our body. We are not our body. Okay, this is returning our mind to oneness, our soul and our spirit to where it began. And so this is why I've said many times on our calls that the first and final lesson for us is that we are not our body. And when you can think we are not our body, when you believe that to be true, there is no attack that becomes real. Because ultimately all attack comes back to, in our belief system, that we're physically being attacked, that it's physically hurting us. Because if it's not physically hurting us, we're like, oh, well, what is it actually happening? What is it actually hurting? But we take a lot of the things, what people say to us, their tone, as almost like physical attack on us. And the only way we justify attack is we go all the way down the road to it physically hurting us somehow. Right? Then we can say, yep, see, that attack is real. The only way we really justify attack at the end of the day is we say that it's physically affecting us, because our body is the only thing that proves separation to be real. The body is the thing that proves that my error is justified. All right, so at the end of the day, when you're on your deathbed, when it's time to go and to lay the body to rest, you will have to come to terms with the fact that you are not your body. We can start practicing that now, though. Learning itself, like the classroom in which it occurs, is temporary. The ability to learn has no value when change is no longer necessary. The eternal creative have nothing to learn. You can learn to improve your perceptions and can become a better and better learner. This will bring you closer and closer into closer and closer accord with the sonship. Okay, capital sonship. Sonship is when all the sons come back together. But the sonship itself is a perfect creation, and perfection is not a matter of degree. Only while there is a belief in differences is learning meaningful. So learning is only necessary while we believe things can still change, while we still think perceptions can change. Learning is only necessary when we have not reached that state of eternal peace. Okay, so when we're all still returning to the oneness, the sonship, of course, calls the sonship with a capital S. That's whenever every son, every child of God has returned to the ship. Evolution is a process in which you seem to proceed from one degree to the next. You correct your previous missteps by stepping forward. This process is actually incomprehensible in temporal terms because you return as you go forward. The atonement is the device by which you can free yourself from the past as you go ahead. It undoes your past errors, thus making it unnecessary for you to keep retracing your steps without advancing to your return. In this sense, the atonement saves time, but like the miracle it serves, does not abolish it. As long as there is a need for atonement, there is a need for time. But the atonement as a completed plan has a unique relationship to time. Until the atonement is complete, its various phases will proceed in time, but the whole atonement stands at the end of time. At that point, the bridge of return has been built. The atonement is a total commitment. You may still think this is associated with loss, a mistake all the separated sons of God can make in one way or another. It is hard to believe a defense that cannot attack is the best defense. This is what is meant by the meek shall inherit the earth. They will literally take over because of their strength. A two-way defense is inherently weak precisely because it has two edges and can be turned against you very unexpectedly. So this is a huge line. If you really kind of sit with it a little bit, a two-way defense is inherently weak because precisely it has two edges and can be turned against you very unexpectedly. This possibility cannot be controlled except by miracles. A miracle turns the defense of atonement to your real perception, and you can become more and more secure. You assume your natural talent of protecting others, knowing yourself as both a brother and a son. So any defense that, I think this line is such a good way for us to look at what are we using? When we defend ourselves, when we defend ourselves, like I need to defend myself, it's really a way of attacking. And that's why the Course says, the only way to peace is you got to put the sword and the shield down, right? Because even the shield can be used to attack. And oftentimes, what we do in our defense is we're building an army. We're building an army to retaliate at some point, right? Even if we do back down for now, we're actually building up our army so that we can come back and attack later. Anytime that we feel we can be attacked, we're saying there's a lack. There's a lack in us that somehow, some way we could be attacked. So we have a lack in us that could be attacked. And that's only pointing back to ourselves. All right. So, okay. Welcome, everybody. So good to see some of you. I'll open it up now for any thoughts, any questions, anything that's coming to your mind. And then we can do like an open discussion. There is no dumb questions, no dumb thoughts. What are you guys hearing? What are you guys thinking? Or, what's going on with you guys this week? Anything that A Course in Miracles and the teachings of the Course can support? Next session on this chapter is actually really great, and we really and it talks about how we're actually afraid of the atonement. We're afraid of the correction itself. We're afraid to give over what we've collected in the 3D world to spirit and to God, because we think that to achieve this level of peace and to achieve that state, we have to give up something else, and we're conflicted in what we want to give up. Right? Do I give total faith over to my Creator, to God? Or do I hold on to the things that I treasure? Right? That's what the Course says in this section, that you treasure it. How much do you treasure? What do you treasure, and how much do you treasure it? And it really comes down to, we really, really treasure this body. We will use all the defenses against it. So, usually when we come to these moments of awkward silence of what do we say next, we ask Marianne to interject. A Year of Miracles, Marianne Williamson. For reflection on reclaiming the knowledge of the heart. Meaning doesn't lie in things. Meaning lies in us. When we attach value to things that aren't love, the money, the car, the house, the prestige, we are loving things that cannot love us back. We are searching for meaning in the meaningless. Money of itself means nothing. Material things of themselves mean nothing. It's not that they're bad, it's that they're nothing. We came here to co-create with God by extending love. Life spent with any other purpose in mind is meaningless. Contrary to our nature and ultimately painful. It is as though we've been lost in the dark, parallel universe where things are loved more than people. We overvalue what we perceive with our physical senses and undervalue what we know to be true in our hearts. It's time to reclaim the knowledge of our hearts, that the world might be set free. We overvalue what we perceive with our physical senses and undervalue what we know to be true in our hearts. So think about that. Think about how we do our relationships. Where do we spend majority of our time? Right? What robs us of our peace? Like there's a place in us that we can find that is just so blissful and calming and still and trusting. And then when we start to think about our relationships, our money, our cars, our careers, our prestige, our status, then it starts to bring stress. Like what's this physical body in this world? And then it starts to bring stress. But what we know in our hearts, what we recognize in our hearts, it's truth. Right? And sometimes when we hear people in truth, we are lit up. What you doing?
I need a bill.
Huh?
I need to find a bill.
All right, well, here's Babeski and Love back here. I don't know what she's looking for. But hello and welcome. Say hi to all the peeps.
Hello. I have to go do here.
Okay. All right, thoughts, questions? What are you challenged by? Anything challenging you? Anything in this world? Money? Relationships? What's going on?
Actually, I do have a question related to something we touched on today.
Nice. Hey, Nate.
Good to see you, Alex. Could you say more about the definition of atonement in this context? Because my understanding of that previously would have had like a punishment kind of connotation to it.
Yep. This is exactly what the Course talks about. That we, okay, let me just flip to this part in the beginning of how we see love. Okay, and so it has to do with what we think sin is, right? Atonement is the correction of sin. It's not the punishment of the mistake we made, but it's an error that gets to be corrected. It's an error that gets to be corrected. So sin, okay, in the Course, we start with sin to understand the atonement. Sin in the Course is simply defined as lack of love. It's lack of love. There's no punishment that needs to happen when lack of love shows up, right? So sin is defined as lack of love. Since love is all there ever is, right? In the beginning we said love is all encompassing. The opposite of love is fear. But what is all encompassing can have no opposites. So now we think about lack of love. Lack of love doesn't even exist because everything is either love or a call for love. And that's the correction that gets to happen. But if we think that there is lack of love, and it's true that there is fear, there's two different sides, that means there's one side that gets to be punished. And it's our mind that decides punishment gets to happen. And we use atonement as our perception of atonement as a two-edged sword now. And that's the Course says that will be an atonement with a lowercase a. With a capital A, this is godly, atonement, which is, it really brings us back to just a simple correction. So sin in the sight of the Holy Spirit is a mistake to be corrected rather than an evil to be punished. Our sense of inadequacy, weakness, and incompletion comes from a strong investment in the scarcity principle that governs the whole world of illusions. From that point of view, we seek in others what we are wanting in ourselves. We love another in order to get something ourselves. That, in fact, is what passes for love in this dream world. There can be no greater mistakes than that, for love is incapable of asking for anything. Right? So from that place, we look at sin. Right? We look at sin as, okay, it's lack of love. It's not like you're doing something wrong, you get to be punished for it. But it's a simple correction that and it's for you, actually. It's for you to return and join back with your brother. That this is not your lack of love in your actions or your words right now. I'm seeing it as lack of love. Now, all things, okay, all events, all things happen, and it's either love or a call for love. Which means love is experienced and called upon regardless of the situation. And so that's the correction that happens. So the atonement, the correction right there is the undoing of my thought of attack. Right? Because when we actually see something as lack of love, we think there's an opposite to love. And that comes from our perception and our judgment of something. Right? So for example, let me think, when somebody is rude, that's a very simple example. When somebody is rude, or somebody cuts you off while they're driving, or they have, they're very aggressive, we perceive it as something wrong. We perceive it as they need to be punished. Somebody should pull them over. Somebody should throw them in jail. It depends on what state of mood we're in. We decide the level of punishment we want to give, right? But we can call upon compassion and understanding. All of a sudden, we're like, oh yeah, maybe this person just is really need to go to the bathroom, right? Or this person there's an emergency, right? And then oftentimes, until we are in that situation, we aren't really compassionate to it. But we can be, right? And that's the training of our own mind to see our brothers as to see what the Course says, Christ consciousness in them. And that's our practice. Our practice is to see the innocence and the perfection in somebody. And that's the call to love, call for love. We see the perfection in somebody, even if they say things that aren't in alignment to that, or their actions aren't in alignment to that. Okay, spirit that flows through me also flows through them and through everybody. Okay, so hopefully that supports that atonement, right? Okay, awesome. I have a question. What does ACIM say about karma? Does it get preoccupied with it? But people are moved by that. It doesn't get. So karma, okay, it's another way of just really explaining that all things will return back to its origin. Okay, and it's going to take time. Karma talks about it's really it's the same law as everything is an idea, and when idea is given or shown or expressed, it grows and becomes more. Right? So karma, the more good you do, the more good comes back to you, and and also the karmic cycle, right? In Eastern teachings, they talk a lot about the karmic cycle, the samsara, right? Of this life, this circle that you kind of keep going through until you break out of it. You break out of it by identifying yourself as the miracle worker, as the teacher of God. And now you can break free. You can break free from that level. From the cycle that continues to happen, the cycle of birth, the birth and rebirth cycle, yeah. Death and rebirth cycle. So as bodies in this world, we believe in time and space. All right. That means for every one of us, as we are born, if we believe we are a body and we are identified with this Alex, this identity of Alex, who I am, we come into this world at this time, in this rebirth or whatever it is, that I am playing Alex. But even the idea of Alex is limiting this rebirth. Right? So who am I? And everything has a beginning and an end. And just in the thought of that there is a birth and a death, our world operates from a place of scarcity. We're really incapable of looking beyond our death. That's why everything that we create in this world reflects that birth and death. We don't look for something to be eternal. And it's the same cycle, actually this karmic cycle about our own lives, and it's the same thing that happens in the world. Like as we create more things that only has certain life cycles so that we can generate more money, it's the opposite. Right? It's the opposite of abundance. Can we start to focus on creating something that lasts forever? One time creation lasts forever. At some point, I do believe that intelligence and human beings will start to think in that way. But because we operate we come into the world and our body lasts a certain period of time and it dies. As long as we believe that to be true, we will create things in reflection to that. And this is why the Course says the goal is to begin to learn yourself as infinite, as never changing, as the truth, as a extension of God, an idea that cannot disappear, cannot die. Yeah. Just reading the comments. But happens when we die. What does that mean, Yuki?
So, my question, I guess, is related to this karma. So when we do die, and we're infinite, what do we take form in? Like, do we come back as a tree and or, I mean, what is it?
So here is what the Course says. We can, if we see this world as just a dream, right? In the last section, we actually talked about the Bible says Adam fell in a deep sleep, but never anywhere does it mention Adam waking up. So the entire idea of separation, the world that we live in, could possibly be a dream, right? We could just really be dreaming right now. This is what the Course is pointing to, is that this physical world that we live in is a dream. Now, think about when you go to sleep. When you go to sleep and the dream ends, are you worried about coming back as a tree, or do you need to understand any of the dreams that happened in there that you were dreaming when you were sleeping? No, you just return back to, oh, here, I'm awake. And so the Course says our only goal, the only thing we have to focus on is to find peace in every area of our life. And it starts with relationships that we have. If we can find peace in all the areas of our life, that is the prerequisite to that waking up. And God takes the last step in the waking up. We can only stand in front of heaven's gates. But once that door opens and we walk through, all the baggages, the identity of Alex, A Course in Miracles, forgiveness, Holy Spirit, the atonement, all of that is dropped, and we wake up back to, I don't know what it is. It's not really explainable, right? But God takes the last step. This is why the Course says all of our questions and all of our concerns, all of our, insecurities, it comes from simply our disconnection to God, to Source. Everything that you are afraid of, everything that you have doubt about, is because you don't trust that God's got it all handled. And there will be, and in our lives, we can fight that as much as we want, but then at some point we're gonna be like, dude, I can't even explain how we got to where we are. I can't explain the person how do we meet? How did all these dots connect for this to happen for me? And at some point, things will happen in our lives that will be like, this is a miracle. I can't even believe this is happening. All right. Oftentimes that comes from when we hit rock bottom also, or when we're faced with great adversity. We call upon God, and we recognize, okay, all things are perfect anyways. Right? So in faith, it gives you the courage, it gives you the strength to step forward and keep going when you can't see a good outcome. I think Martin Luther King said, faith is to take this next step without knowing where it's going, or the next step in the staircase, or something like that. So all of our concerns, all of our loss of peace comes from our disconnection to Source. Now, when we actually get tapped in, we're like, yeah, wow, everything is just so perfect. There are things, there are meditations and ceremonies and things that you can participate in that will give you glimpses into what that is. What that experience is like. And to feel it with your brothers and your sisters. And moments of separation disappear. Right? And it's like, I truly see you. I truly see you, and I truly see myself. Now let's see what the Course says about I think in the back in the manual for teachers, it actually talks about like about how a was correction made. Okay, it's somewhere here. I'm almost there. Reincarnation. Is reincarnation so? So we'll read that in a second here. Go ahead, Fraser.
It's an appropriate page to drop in on because I've literally been thinking a lot about that, about the potential for living multiple lives, and I've been meditating a lot more. And one thing that has been coming in, and I've spoke to Adam and Claudia about it, is a woman holding a bowl. And at one part in this, she was just holding this bowl of this crazy liquid. And then yesterday night, I was in meditation, and it was the first time she raised her face up, and I saw her face, and she had white paint on, and her eyes were like this, like intense blue. It was the same color of the water or liquid that was in this bowl. And it's like, what? I keep wondering, what does this, like, what is this? What does it mean? What is it a call to do? Is it something from my past that I don't know, or, so it kind of tips along that line of, is it a past life thing, or is it something that I'm being called to take action to?
Yeah, so this is interesting. Again, the question should always be, what is it for? Right? What is it for? Now, we'll go into this section of is reincarnation so in the back, but I think this answers this question a little bit of how we should think about reincarnation. So in the ultimate sense, reincarnation is impossible because there is nothing to reincarnate to. Right? So in the ultimate sense, when we're in a state of infinity and eternity, what are we reincarnating into? Reincarnation only matters when we talk about the physical world. Now, the more you talk and the more you believe in the physical world, the more the physical world becomes real to you. The vision of one world will cost you the vision of the other. As long as you're looking at the physical, the eternal disappears. As long as you're focused on the physical, heaven disappears for you. Because they are opposites. They are complete opposites. In no way do they share any physical and any attributes. Right? So when we think about the physical versus spiritual. So in the ultimate sense of the spiritual, reincarnation is impossible. Does not matter. Right? There is no past or future, and the idea of birth into a body has no meaning either once or many times. Reincarnation cannot then be true in any real sense. The only question should be, is the concept helpful? Okay, this is what we get to like. Is the concept of reincarnation helpful for you right now? So is your idea, is your vision of this woman and this bowl and this water, is it helpful for you right now? What is it helpful for? What does it do? Right? Is it to bring you closer to God, or does it bring you further away? Does it bring you closer to trust and love, or does it create more doubt and more question and more uncertainty? Does it bring more trust into your heart? Right? Now it's not just all physical now. There's why is that picture, or why is that woman even showing up? I didn't place it there. That means there must see the connection. If we have a disconnection to spirit or to God, we would be afraid of this image. Right? But if we see it as, something is speaking to me, speaking through me, then that is opening the connection. And as you connect, you're not afraid of it. All right. So again, is this concept helpful or not? And that depends, of course, on what it is used for. Is it used to strengthen the recognition of the eternal nature of life? Then it is helpful indeed. Is any other question about it really useful in lighting up the way? Like many other beliefs, it can be bitterly misused. At least such misuse offers preoccupation and provides pride in the past. At worst, it induces inertia in the present, in between many kinds of of folly are possible. In between, many kinds of folly are possible. Right? So when we think about reincarnation and karma, like what is it used for? You know, reincarnation would not, under any circumstance, be the problem to be dealt with now. Now, in this moment, reincarnation is not a problem to be dealt with. If it were responsible for some of the difficulties the individual faces now, his task would still be only to escape from them now. If he is laying the groundwork for the future life, he can still work out his salvation only now. To some, there may be comfort in the concept, and if it heartens them, its value is self-evident. It is certain, however, that the way to salvation can be found by those who believe in reincarnation and by those who do not. The idea cannot, therefore, be regarded as essential to the curriculum. There is always some risk in seeing the present in terms of the past. There is always some good in any thought which strengthens the idea that life and body are not the same. So the idea of karma and reincarnation, we can think of it this way, is that when we think about the past, when we see the present in terms of the past or the future, there is always risk in that. And there's always some good if it strengthens the idea of life, right? And that life and body is not the same. Spirit and body is not the same. If that idea for you strengthens it, then by all means use it. But if it starts to take you away from the present, right, and you start to think about the future and the past and and it brings a lot of angst, uncertainty. It brings conflicts with people. Then it is not necessary. So for our purposes, it would not be helpful to take any definite stand on reincarnation. A teacher of God should be as helpful to those who believe in it as those who do not. This is a huge line right here. If you think about any beliefs you have, this can be translated to any belief you have about God, Spirit, A Course in Miracles, Christianity, Catholic, all of it. Any religion you can take a stand on, right? It should be helpful to those who believe in it and those who does not. That's the stand you want to be taking. If a definite stand were required of him, it would merely limit his usefulness as well as his own decision making. Of course, our course is not concerned with any concept that is not acceptable to anyone, regardless of his formal belief. His ego will be enough for him to cope with, and it is not the part of wisdom to add sectarian controversies to his burdens. Nor would there be an advantage to his premature acceptance of the course merely because it advocates a long-held belief of his own. Every single person has enough to deal with his own or her own ego. That's the only teaching that it really needs, that is really needed. We do not need to force any teaching, A Course in Miracles, anything on anybody because the ego is enough. Everyone's own ego is enough. That's a big line right there. And when we think about people needing help and needing this and needing that, they don't need nothing. They got the ego and the Holy Spirit working at all times. Their own ego is going to teach them enough. Okay, it's going to create enough problems in which they're going to have to heal from, so we don't have to create the curriculum for somebody. Right? Not only should we not create a curriculum, but we're not even capable of creating the curriculum for someone else. We're not even certain what our own curriculum is. Right? But we learn something, we're like, project it onto somebody else. Right? It's kind of just like what we do. It cannot be too strongly emphasized that this course aims at the complete reversal of thought. When this is finally accomplished, issues such as the validity of reincarnation becomes meaningless. All right, so when we have questions, when we just don't understand something, when it's not clear for us, whether it be the idea of karma, the idea of heaven, the idea of reincarnation, none of this really becomes anything when we have a complete reversal thought, which is, it's all up to God. We simply have a piece of a garden that we tend to. It is given to us to tend to, and that is it. And except what we do is we stand at the edge of our garden and we just look out at everyone else's garden and tell them how that should be done, how this should be done. But we just got to focus on our own thing. Until then, they are likely to be merely controversial. The teacher of God is, therefore, wise to step away from all such questions, for he has much to teach and learn apart from them. He should both learn and teach that theoretical issues, but waste time, draining away from its appointed purpose. If there are aspects of any concept or belief that will be helpful, he will be told about it. He will also be told how to use it. What more does he need to know? Right? So when we get into debates about things, it is what the Course says, it's a waste of time. What happens when we die? Do we take form and treat? Yeah, so these discussions, theoretical issues, is this real? Is is reincarnation real? It's the things that we can't even answer. Why debate in it? What's the point? Right? That's what the Course says. It's a waste of time and drains away from the actual appointed purpose. Does this mean that the teacher of God should not believe in reincarnation himself or discuss it with others who do? The answer is certainly not. If he does believe in reincarnation, it would be a mistake for him to renounce the belief unless his internal teacher advises so. And this is most unlikely. He might be advised that he is misusing the belief in some way that is detrimental to his pupil's advance or his own. Okay, and this part in the Course says pupil because we are all teachers. We teach at all times. It's not like, oh, I'm going to be a teacher elevated above and somebody else's pupil below. Right? It's just whatever we believe to be real, we will be a teacher. We will teach. We will teach that. Okay, so that's why the Course is using this the word pupil. Determined to use pupils advance or his own. Reincarnation would then be recommended because it is necessary. All that must be recognized, however, is that birth was not the beginning and death is not the end. Yet even this much is not required of the beginner. He need merely accept the idea that what he knows is not necessarily all there is to learn. His journey has begun. The emphasis of this Course always remains the same. It is at the moment that complete salvation is offered you, that it is in this moment that you can accept it. This is still your one responsibility. Atonement might be equated with total escape from the past and total lack of interest in the future. Heaven is here. There is nowhere else. Heaven is now. There is no other time. No teaching that does not lead to this is of concern of God's teacher. All beliefs will point to this if properly interpreted. In this sense, it will be said that their truth lies in their usefulness. All beliefs that lead to this progress should be honored. This is the sole criterion that this Course requires. No more than this is necessary. Whatever you believe, whatever your take is on life, death, all of that, if it brings you to life is now and heaven is now, then it should be honored. So does that kind of bring more clarity to some of the questions that we're uncertain about? There is a section in the back in the Manual for Teacher that talks about psychic powers. Is psychic powers desirable? So a lot of things, we'll get into Manual for Teacher things in there for sure as we get to it. Well, we got about 9 more minutes. So what is wanting to be shared? What does this group want to ask? It's interesting for me. Sometimes when I study the course or when I'm going through these sections, the message and the understanding of it is super clear. And then other times it's not. But always towards the end, as I read it, I get reconnected to it. And this is why this call is super important for me personally. I get really excited for it because it forces me to talk about A Course in Miracles. Or it forces me to create a lot of trust. Like I go in, I'm like, wait, am I going to be connected today about this, or am I going to be confused about what it is that I'm reading? Because we forget and we remember and we forget and we remember and we forget. And there are calls that I feel super, super connected and just understand, and message just comes through. And there are other times that I just have to refer to a lot of reading. But both is a practice of trust, of just start. I do a lot of these online Zoom things, speaking in front of people, hopping on podcasts, things like that. I mean, I'm just like, I start by saying, I trust that whatever comes through is going to be the greatest help for myself and for others. Let me just get the first word out. Let me just take the first step of getting out of bed and turning this on and starting it, regardless of how I feel in that time. So again, it's all trust and faith. I believe that everything I do is a test of faith for me. Everything is an obstacle, is a challenge for me to remember again. And as a committed teacher of God, every time we do something, the stakes get higher and higher. Right? If we make a mistake, the stakes get higher and higher because, we believe in it more. We believe that this is our call, and we believe that, and we become ready to take it on. That's what the Course is really saying, that you will always be ready for whatever is presented in front of you. It's just that like courage to step into it. Finding the strength in something to guide you to move forward, and the Holy Spirit to help you solve problems, to help you overcome challenges. So that's my little share. What else? Who else? Let's see. LinkedIn says, "What's up, good sir?" How do I move forward when getting stuck again? Do I need to let go of something that continues to hold me? Move forward. Yeah. So, when we get stuck, first we have to be kind and forgiving to ourselves, right? Like, okay, here I go again. I've done this again. There's usually a lot of judgment and shame that comes with it, and it keeps us stuck. But when we interpret it correctly, that this is happening again, it's happening for me again so that I may choose again. Can I choose again? Because I obviously chose wrongly the first time. Here's my opportunity again. We can see that, even if I choose wrong again, I'm going to get to choose. It's going to come again. Right? There's a lot of peace in knowing that it comes back, and what is the purpose of that, like forgetting? What's the purpose of it being given to us again? So that we may remember now. It comes back so that we can act now. So that we can do something different. We can respond to a situation or a person differently this time. With more love, with more kindness. When we get stuck, it's like, here's your opportunity to do it again. So see it as that. See it as a gift that's been given you. And when we can see it like that, we are strengthening our faith and the remembering of it. You know, we get an opportunity to interrupt the patterns in which we've been operating from. So the forgiveness and the kindness to ourselves, removing the judgments, that's where it kind of starts. Go ahead, Adam.
What you just shared was so it just like tickled awake something that I've been in the practice of for myself, and also we Claudia and I and a group of friends went down to Loveburn. So there's 8,000 people, and it's a very quote unquote awake kind of community. There's different helpers that are being ingested and things like that to open consciousness and what have you. And I heard so many conversations just in and around me and within myself around, the external circumstances equaling the internal feeling, right? And so, like you were just sharing there, when the anxiety, the fear, the worry, the stress, whatever all those little things are, comes up again, it brings to my mind like what it is to go from, awareness or actually like unawareness, into the state of awareness, and then the awareness of like, okay, this thing is happening to me, and then awareness again, like this thing is happening again, and why is this here? What is this showing me? And what I've been in the study of myself is noticing that with a certain amount of devotion, when I say certain amount of devotion, with devotion to this, the question of what is this here for, and what you said a little bit earlier when you were responding back to Fraser about the bowl is it bringing me closer to God, closer to peace, or further away? It's been really interesting to notice, and I have this like picture in my mind as you were just sharing what you shared of a little guy inside of me with a flashlight, sort of shining on these different subconscious parts of myself, these different fragmented parts of myself. And as I can embrace or be with the question just for a minute versus like just operating over it, whatever it may be, there's that part of myself. It's like, we live in love and joy, choose love and joy in this moment, choose peace, choose God. And at the same time, there's this little something coming up in my gut or in my mind or in my body, and being a student of that, a disciple of that aspect of myself. And then this like wonderful next step has begun to unfold, where the embodiment thereof begins to happen, where there's no longer this, oh, what is this for thought process? Let me learn from this. And like this kind of difference of like, okay, here's this thing that is not within me, or this anxiety, this fear, this whatever is tickling itself awake, is now integrating further and becoming more embodied. And it's really interesting to watch the ego though go like, okay, let me just check this box, right? And then once I check that box enough times, it becomes embodied. And then I'm just sharing this as my own share, as wherever it bears on, not as a lesson or a teaching, which I've had the tendency to do in the past, but it's like the embodiment of the awareness, the integration of that awareness, the learning, the what is for, that whole process that I just spoke out that you mentioned earlier, becomes like, okay, there's this happening that's happening, and it doesn't necessarily have the meaning that my ego once gave it, that takes me on this detour away from, and this distraction from the present moment. And it's been really beautiful to kind of put a map together of the subconscious aspect of the ego coming into the light. To me, as a light worker, bringing up the shadow aspect into the light to illuminate. And then after doing that a certain amount of times and noticing, like, can I actually, like you said, get up in the morning and take the step, even though my body or my mind might not quite feel like getting up at this time to do this call, I want to sleep, or I got this other stresses pulling me, whatever. But just to take that first step in service to God, is such a beautiful practice. And there's all these little tools, for me, it's like Dinesh or incense, or just giving myself time to make my matcha in the morning, whatever it is to bring that present moment, and to understand that the mind chatter and the cerebral trying to understand the course, like in that trying to understand the course, I'm actually not being present in this particular moment, you know?
Mhm.
So it's just, I just wanted to share that as you shared the last couple of sentences. It was like, oh, okay, this is coming up. The embodiment of these different awarenesses, I feel like is, maybe it's my own working with the course for the years I have. Maybe it's the cosmic thing. Maybe it's just, you know, whatever it might be. But just, I found myself not asking so many fucking questions. You know what I mean? That are just taking me here and there about what does this mean? What does that mean? In landmark, you know, the world is empty, meaningless, and we assign the meaning to everything. And then, you know, we're meaning making machines, all these phrases that get tossed around in transformational work. But it's like constantly trying to assign the meaning to things. And like Alex, you and I had a call last night. Information. If I assign meaning to this whole thing and then I put energy behind it, it's gonna paint the picture as I'm speaking with you about what's going on. When actually what's going on is there's just some words on a screen popping up, and then I'm creating all this energy and meeting around it. It's been really beautiful, and I really wanted to say thank you to you, Alex, for the way that you teach the course and are a student of the course, because it allows me to hear through your real world examples of what you're going through, and then the open share and dialogue and the invitation that I feel that you offer to assimilate these concepts into real life that allows further embodiment, as opposed to just reading the course front to back and then all this information. That's all in the mind. The mind is the one that's reading the information and meaning making of the information and trying to rewrite the meaning. It's really around like the simplicity of being with what is, and finding these further alignments within myself to say, am I taking this step from peace or from responsibility or I have to or stress or whatever it might be, and then just asking those little tiny questions like, okay, is this taking me closer to peace or further away from peace? Just wanted to share that as it was coming through, and as a thank you to you for your consistency and the way that you hold the course, my experience of that. So thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. And, you know, just because I studied the course and I teach the course does not mean I'm like, oh, yeah, I never lose my peace. I lose my shit all the time. I mean, you guys have heard it on these calls. I mean, me and my wife, like, we do this work and we always are leveling up our communication because things happen. I mean, I get angry, I get ticked off, and I say things that I don't really mean, you know, but we continue to do the Course in Miracles work, right? Which is letting go of all the past moments and not taking it personal, and recognizing that if I took it personal, it is not on them, it's on me, right? It's not what somebody else said. It's me that took it personal. I perceived it as an attack on me when it really wasn't, right? And the reason why I would even perceive it as an attack on me, because I believe there is a lack somewhere in me. Now that's the place that we get to look. You know, the course is always about, this is your work. There is nobody else out there. You know, everything that's happening is a reflection and a mirror for you to look at yourself and how you respond and how you perceive and interpret things in the world. And so we get to heal that in our own minds. And when we think about the past and the present and the future, we talked about that a lot today. Anything that keeps you and helps you stay in the present moment, it is useful. Anything that takes you to the past or the future, it is not useful. It is actually a waste of time. So one of the mantras, and I'm going to close this out here with this, is, you know, after what Adam said and everything, it's, this moment will teach you everything you need to know about this moment. When we call upon the past and the future and all those things, it actually takes us away from this moment. It takes us away from the clarity of what needs to be done and how we should respond. This moment will teach me right here, did I respond with compassion? If I did not respond with compassion and kindness, my mind leads to attack and defense, and it robs me of my peace. I don't have peace. This moment is teaching me I don't have peace, and I must have given it away somewhere by attacking somebody or by feeling like I'm attacked. All right, so this moment will teach us everything we need to know about this moment. And, you know, God, Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it, is always present now. And the same Spirit, same God that flows through me, flows through you, So the practice here and the reminder is for us to look at each other, look at our brothers through the lens, the spiritual lens, not through our physical eyes. And what I mean by that is look at the perfection and the innocence and the spirit behind somebody rather than the actions and the words and the things that you see with your physical eyes and hear with your ears. Because those things will deceive you. Seeing and hearing with your spiritual sight, spiritual ears, they do not deceive you. Physical, 3D, that deceives. 5D brings more love and more trust. So with that, thank you all very much for being here on this beautiful Wednesday. You guys have an amazing day. And Natalia, thank you for joining. I know you'd be doing yoga at these times. And to see you back here is a treat.
Yeah, it was great to be here and seeing everybody.
Mm-hmm. All righty.
Thanks, Alex. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, brother. See you
Thank
guys
you.
all on Sunday.
Thank you, Alex. Phenomenal.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. So appreciate it.
Later.
Thank you. Great call.